this is a regional children's hospital foundation. And the leader of this particular part of the fundraising enterprise had some significant challenges. She was one of those relatively new leaders. She had inherited some teams, and she noticed that they were doing a lot of reactive work, not really moving the needle, working super hard. So she was interested in shifting these teams from all these reactive things to a more proactive approach. She believed that she and her team could raise a lot more money for these children than they were currently doing. So she was looking to clarify her team roles and improve collaboration between her teams. And she really was looking for this doubling of productivity. She was going to hit what she was after. She wanted to make sure things were prioritized. And finally, last but absolutely not least, she had inherited these leaders who really hadn't been invested in for a long time. And as a result, they had limited capabilities in their own management skills and toolkits. I happen to think PeakForm could be helpful. And so we did it. I'm going to cover steps 1 and 2, so a little bit of design thinking examples and some OKR examples. And in our next webinar, which will be in November, we'll talk about 3 and 4, about how we actually managed to get that execution going. I'm taking you behind the curtain into my approach to these things. When I'm in that first align on aspirations box in the model, I know that I'm going to be reaching into my design thinking toolkit, and I'm probably going to use some sort of combination of these 6 methods. What are they? The first one is stakeholder mapping. And I won't get into the specifics of the tool, but it's more than just your org chart. And it requires a deeper set of exercises to think about who touches what, when, why, and how. So we always start there to make sure we're not skipping a whole group of people who need to be in the conversation. And then depending on the particular circumstance, we reach for methods that map to that circumstance. So in this particular case, this is a fundraising organization. They have goals. They're very clearly articulated. It's all about how much money they raise, how many donors they retain. They were not missing that part of it. So they'd known what their goals were for a long time. We didn't need to ask them to start to create new goals immediately, but we did need to understand why they were so stuck. And so that's why we started with the rose thorn vine method. Anytime you write a sticky note, it's useful in its individual capacity, but it's far more useful when it's grouped with other people's thinking. And so you will always see this pattern finding in design thinking that we call affinity clustering. And every now and again, we do the snap voting and assessing where the heat is in the room using a voting mechanism called visualize the vote. The first workshop that we did was with a select number of stakeholders. It wasn't the full team. It was the team lead. There was some leadership. A few other coordinators were in the session. And we asked them a very simple question. You've been working on these objectives for a long time. You've been told to raise money, work together. What's working for you across your teams? Give me 3 pink roses, make you feel rosy. What's not working for you? What's making you feel blue? Give me 3 of those. Those are the thorns. And you've probably seen some examples or opportunities for improvement. Give me those 2. Those are the buds like spring. And for about 10 minutes, because that's all it really takes, everybody sits quietly in their own zone, writing down what they think. People don't tend to work in meetings. They talk in meetings. So when you give people quiet time in a meeting to actually do work, it's amazing how insightful and productive they'll be. And everybody does it. We don't get anybody pushing back from the table. I'm not participating in this. This isn't for me. We're going to get everybody's opinion. And then we facilitate the bringing together of these insights and experiences into themes. And we cluster them and we label them. And eventually we even pull out the insights. So without going into too much zooming in and out, you can even see from this group that things like goal clarity was a little bit of a mixed bag, some roses, some thorns. The process one People talking about process, invariably, mostly blue, little bit of green, tiny bit of pink. So what you're seeing is that each of these themes is going to tell us a lot about the actual data on each of the specific sticky notes. But even more than that, it's going to give us from the colors a sense of whether things are going well in that theme or not. We learned a lot from that. And when I asked for feedback, I just want to share a few things that this group was saying very early on. I love seeing the themes come together on the whiteboard, so many great perspectives, starting to work differently together. I learned objectives are bigger and more aspirational. I wish we could do this with the leadership team with more team members. That's the first workshop. Then we kept going. Now we're in setting strategic direction. We've learned from that first workshop what we need to think about and what needs to be on our radar for that strategic direction. Now we're putting together the leads of the team to set the objectives and key results for the group going forward. So here we see the leads thinking about what the key pillars of the organization are, going back up to that vision, mission, strategy. They're all about philanthropy, donor, volunteer experience, etc. And these leads, 3 or 4 of them, spent 2 hours really digging deep to think about the aspirations that they want to set, the objectives and the key results for their overall team. And they came up with things they never thought they would have put on a list before. And then they brought a team together for their leadership retreat. And they said to them, we have set objectives and key results for our overall team. In this meeting, you're going to go with your team manager and you're going to set objectives and key results for your own team. To warm them up, we started with a what's on your radar exercise to get them articulating what they care about so that each of the leaders could make sure that they're paying attention to the needs of their team. But then they spent their time coming up with their objectives and key results. And watch what they said after the meeting. I circled a lot of them here. They said, I liked the support my team showed me. I liked the collective goal setting, the ability to have bottom-up input on our priorities, hearing ideas from the whole team, right? This is a new way of thinking and working. They've never been in a session like this before. What did I learn? I'm smarter than I think. And I know where this comes from. This is somebody who was really struggling. And I said to her, just write something down. Write down what you think it should be. And she did. And everybody voted for hers. So there's a lot of human experience happening in this room. There's a shift from that misaligned, I feel alone, I'm overworked, to I'm starting to feel motivated. I learned that having inspirational North Star objective will make our work more meaningful to that purpose question. I learned we can have aggressive goals. Who knew we could really push? That's awesome. I learned there's a lot of overlap between what we do. I wish we knew this work would be supported from the higher level, right? Sometimes this work starts with a particular group and not the top of the organization. And closing that gap is important. Personally, I like to show, not tell. Let's show the value, and then we'll get the support that we need. I want to keep the process going. I wish we do that. Always, I wish we had more. So very productive, already starting to see the shift in the team and how they think. The next exercise is an eye chart done remotely, where we actually took all the team objectives and all the key results. We said, everybody tell us every project you're doing. Let's see how they map to the objectives and key results. And if you've got good eyes, you can see that there are dots here where we marked whether each of those initiatives were red, amber, or green. To what extent were they really going to help achieve that key result? Because we need this information for the next phase. We've mapped the initiatives to the key results. Now we've got to get ready to innovate and execute. How ready are we to achieve these results? What are we missing? Which of these initiatives need to be rethought and taken up to the next level? Because all of this work that we're doing, if we don't change anything, we're not going to get a different result. So how do we get more innovative? But this is our next piece that we're working on. My client copied me on a note to one of her colleagues. I think what she said is very important here. She said they started doing this a few months ago. They wanted to rethink and significantly accelerate their fundraising. As you might imagine, it's both scary and very invigorating. This is a relatively recently promoted person who's coming in with something very different with the support of her lead. She had a lot of courage to do it. She and the team have found it very invigorating, particularly for the teams who feel like they've been stuck on the hamster wheel of reactive work.